Welcome back to Foreign Assignment and how the world has changed in the wake of the attack on the United States. Arguably, the other area of the world most affected by this act of terror is the Mideast. Neil Macdonald is the CBC's Middle East correspondent, of course. He joins us now from a main street in Arab East Jerusalem. Hello, Neil.
Hi, Ian.
Let me begin by asking you what the impact of the last few days has been on the area you're in right now.
Well, the other part of the world affected is not arguably the Middle East, Ian. It is the Middle East. Anything like this, especially as the Americans continue to come up with lists of people from this part of the world and naming Arab states as the places those people came from, starts to touch here. People are terribly afraid of what retaliation is coming, where it's going to come, what form it's going to take. The Palestinians are deathly afraid of all this. There has been, as you know, some expressions of happiness at the very start of this about what happened. Just behind me here, actually in East Jerusalem, there was a small group of people celebrating, and those pictures were seen around the world. The Palestinian Authority ordered any expressions of happiness crushed by their security forces. That was on the direct orders of Yasser Arafat. There have been videos seized because there were other celebrations. There has been videos seized, there have been cameramen arrested. They are bound and determined that they are going to suppress any kind of celebratory, and they've been telling their people this is not something to celebrate about. It's one thing to cheer as Scuds hit Tel Aviv during the Gulf War because the enemy is Israel. It's quite another thing to antagonize the United States of America. They don't want to annoy the United States, and they know that they've got a $400 million annual aid package from the United States that they don't want to endanger. So I think that the leadership certainly understands the delicacy of the matter. And on the Israeli side, I think it's probably fair to say there's a certain amount of triumphalism. People are saying that now the rest of the world knows what we've put up with for years. Maybe they'll side with us now against the Palestinians, against the Islamic terrorists, as they call them, which to them means Palestinians. But I think at the same time, Israelis know that if there is a massive retaliation, it will inevitably touch their lives. And I think there's a certain fear here, that sort of which we saw 10 years ago during the Gulf War. How is this going to hit Israel?
A lot of people, Neil, in Canada and the United States have told us that they're very troubled by those pictures of celebration that they're seeing. Let me put to you a question they're asking us. Do people there hate Americans so much? How can they cheer when so many innocent people died?
Well, you know, I think that it's no secret that there's been a growing animosity towards the United States in the last year here, as it has sided very strongly with Israel during this uprising. And I think that, you know, Israel and the United States have become synonymous in the minds of a lot of Arabs. As I say, I think it was the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Anyone who strikes such a blow against Israel's greatest protector and ally is bound to be popular in certain elements of the Arab street. But at the same time, I think I should say that after those initial celebrations, two things happened. I think people started to realize the scale of what had happened, the sheer scale of what had happened. They started to become very frightened at the repercussions. And of course, at the same time, the leadership was telling them, you know, this is not a time to do this. And the Palestinian leadership has been sort of desperately organizing memorials and public displays of sympathy and sorrow to try to counteract those very images. Elsewhere in the Arab world, you know, I think a bit the same thing. People very frightened and wondering what form the retaliation is going to take.
Now, Neil, we have just about a minute, but let me quickly ask you about Osama bin Laden, his profile, the level of support he has in that region.
Osama bin Laden was a nobody until this week amongst the Palestinians. That's changed a bit. You're seeing people waving around his picture from time to time. The Palestinians have really cracked down strongly on that. But this, Ian, goes back hundreds of years, you know, right to the Crusades. I'm not kidding. I mean, the Arab memory is very long. The street just down the road from me is named Salahuddin Street. He was the Crusader, he was the Arab leader, the Kurdish general who expelled the Crusaders from the Holy Land. Greatest Arab here to date. Arab leaders are constantly comparing themselves to Salahuddin. There's a long memory of betrayal of the Arab people, of manipulation, aggression, and imperialistic policies towards them. It runs very deep in the web and weave of Arab society. And as I said earlier, you know, anyone who strikes a blow against someone perceived to be an enemy of the Arab people, and it's a tribal thing, is bound to be perceived by some elements as a hero.
Neil Macdonald in Jerusalem, as always, a pleasure. Senior European correspondent Don Murray has prepared this special report for Foreign Assignment.
The atrocity and destruction have created a rhetorical new world. Something fundamental has changed, we're told. It's easy to forget that we've heard this before. Just 10 years ago in the Gulf War, there was much talk of a new world order. That was a false rhetorical dawn. Not this time, according to a former Clinton administration official.
What we've now defined is a division between the civilized world, all the countries that are prepared to stand with the United States against these groups that are the enemies of the civilized world. And I think it has been almost, in a sick sense, a clarifying moment in history.
In the wake of the attacks, Europe has stood in silence and shock, gathering in grief to the side of the United States. NATO, too, has rallied to Washington's call. It has invoked for the first time Article 5 of its charter. An attack on one state is an attack on all 19. In a dreadful way, the atrocities offer new life to the alliance.
In a very short time, in less than 24 hours, the alliance has decided that it could basically operate in any part of the world outside the territory of its own member states. It has also decided that a terrorist attack, not an attack by another country, should be considered within the remit of the North Atlantic Treaty. And it
Jonathan Isle believes that militarily the world has changed dramatically.
The assumption that we're still talking about a world of states. Well, the biggest enemies now have no representation in the UN Security Council, do not abide by any international principles. The assumption somehow that we could continue gathering intelligence information about other countries clearly will need to change. So at almost every level, we are witnessing a military revolution.
The people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Even before the consequences of that military revolution sink in, the U.S. government is talking of war. War waged by a coalition of civilized nations against terrorist networks. Many talk of the need to sacrifice conveniences, possibly even some rights or liberties in this crusade.
Rationally, the value of democracy is that these things are going to be discussed, and they're going to be debated, and the voices of concern about civil liberties will be heard, and the need for security will be balanced. And clearly there are going to be some inconveniences, perhaps even more than inconveniences.
The American call for a crusade is backed by British Prime Minister Tony Blair. His is an apocalyptic vision of extremists.
We know that they would, if they could, go further and use chemical, biological, or even nuclear weapons of mass destruction. We know also that there are groups or people, occasionally states, who will trade the technology and capability of such weapons. It is time this trade was exposed, disrupted, and stamped out. But
Blair and his government so far stand alone in Europe in their public enthusiasm for the crusade. This is the fracture line in NATO. It's not surprising. It took George Bush's father 6 months to organize the coalition to fight the Gulf War. It took NATO even longer to resolve to bomb Serbia in the spring of 1999. Even in Britain, the government may be out of step with its people. In the streets, there is shock, but not anger. There is also concern about the effect of American anger.
We do hope that the Americans don't sort of get gung-ho and go out and create another war, because that would be hopeless. We know how they feel, how angry they feel. We felt like that about the IRA here. We want to go out and kill Irish people. But that doesn't solve anything.
The split between
An intellectual ally of the Blair government, writer Margaret Drabble, is also worried.
It's a very dangerous thing to commit yourself to, particularly when the targets could be spread through many, many nations. Are we going to be at war with the whole of the Middle East, with the whole of the Far East? I think the word war is a dangerous word here because, as I said, we don't know who we're fighting.
And so the paradox, the world may have radically changed last Tuesday, but military crusades are hardly a revolutionary new concept. In the past 1,000 years, Europe has seen many of them. They have frequently begun in fervor and in anger. They've just as frequently ended in confusion, their goals not realized. For Foreign Assignment, I'm Don Murray in London.